Zach,
You're back. Great.
hey man, thank you for your patience. I'm sorry everything's run over today, and
No, that's
I was in
fine.
the middle
That's fine.
of a
Despite
yeah.
despite the fact that I'm a New Yorker, I'm cool because it's legally acceptable to go get CBD oils and gummy bears over the counter. So I'm fine. Isn't that great?
Brother, if more people in my life would adhere to that philosophy,
Everybody would be chilling out, right? Nobody be
everybody
fighting on.
would be.
Yeah, nobody be fighting
Yeah.
on social media. In
That's
fact,
right, brother.
I went across the street and we have Gregory's Coffee. Now, there's a Starbucks right underneath the studio, but I went across the street because my own doctor told me last week, he goes, they have CBD oil coffee over there? I'm like, what? And, man, so listen, I am horrible when it comes to, when I was younger, I could drink with the best of them, but I just don't do that anymore. And I never really tried. I'm like Larry David, never tried any of the marijuana, any of that stuff. So I get a cup of that coffee with the CBD oil in it. I get across the street. I'm already laughing. I go into the pharmacy. I go, hey, do you have any of that CBD oil? She goes, yeah, right over here. I'm like, how much is that? $29. All right, I'll take some gummies. And what's that? The oil drops? Yeah, give me some of that. How much is that? $59. All right, great. So,
Bro, you're killing me. You're killing me.
And it gets better. Wait. So I go to my friend. He's really tweaked these past few months because he's going through a lot of adversity. So I go, hey, take a couple of these gummy bears. So I'm here at the radio station handing out hemp gummy bears to people.
Brother, you're like Willy Wonka right now.
Yes.
You're making the world go round.
I have so many best friends in this place right now. There's about a hug fest might break out. Anyway.
Well, then that explains your patience in trying to get me on the phone. So thank you for calling me back.
Well, I turned into Chong. I'm like, man, what's the matter with the phone, man? And my finger's fat. Right. And then I started hanging up on myself. So now we're finally here with Damon Johnson. Damon, I don't usually have the normal interviews. I guess you could tell. I'm pretty much open about anything. And I really can't stand, Damon, when the disc jockey seems to know more about you than you do. Right?
Yeah, because I think that's really kind of impossible. But I know what you mean. I've been in those conversations where it's like, wow, this cat, he thinks he's just got me all figured out.
Right.
He won't stop talking about me.
And it makes you uncomfortable. You feel kind of weirded out, and you think that this person might be stalking you online. It's just uncomfortable. So over here at the Big Fat American Rock Show, we do what we call Rock and Roll Resume, where you tell us about yourself, a little bit about your history and what you're up to now, your new projects. Maybe do you drink or take any of this CBD stuff? I mean, that kind of stuff. So why don't you?
I mean, how much time have you got, bro? My resume is long and colorful and storied and kind of unbelievable. I do have an edited version though, so I can certainly do that.
I think based on the coffee that I drank and these gummies that I had, far out groovy, man. Goes as long as you like. It's your time. So go ahead.
Well, I appreciate this opportunity, Zach. I guess the Damon Johnson story really starts back in the late 80s, early 90s. I had been in bands and playing the clubs and starting to really get inspired to maybe write my own songs and put Brother Kane together in 1991 after I had a batch of songs that was starting to come together. And fortunately, things happened kind of fast for that band. And between 1993 and 99, we released 3 albums. We toured extensively. So many great experiences, a lot of success at U.S. rock radio, toured with some of our legends, man, some of our idols. We toured with Aerosmith and Van Halen and Robert Plant and on and on and on. And I learned so much that really set me up, for the decades to follow. And when that band called it a day, I continued songwriting and was kind of shocked to get an opportunity to audition for the legendary Alice Cooper in 2004. So between then and 2011, I spent about 5 years touring with Alice. All during that time, still writing. I was fortunate to get a song on a Stevie Nicks album. She loved a song that I had written with my friend John Shanks. Got another song on a Carlos Santana record. All these things were just kind of flukes. It's not like I was aggressively pursuing that, you know. So, and then in 2011, I got the call to join Thin Lizzy, which, for any interview I've ever given, you know, going back to the early Brother Kane days, everyone knows, man, that was my number one influence. It would be like, let me think of a good example.
Well, they're your Beatles.
Yeah, they're my Beatles, man. You know, it would have been like if Pete Townsend had called Eddie Vedder and asked him to join the Who.
Yeah.
You know, it would have been that exact same thing. So, and what I never expected is that Thin Lizzy, because Scott Gorham wanted to write some new music, Thin Lizzy morphed into a new band, Black Star Riders. And I was a part of Black Star Riders for the last 6 years. We made 3 quality rock records. The singer in that band, Ricky Warwick, one of my great friends, we wrote the bulk of those albums together. And it just kind of lit a fire in me that I never really saw coming, Zach. And it just got me back into being an artist, thinking like an artist, creating, gathering information, reading more books, watching more movies, spending more time in solitude with a guitar in my hand. And I just felt like I had a lot to say for the first time maybe in a decade.
Wow.
So that is what has inspired this moment, where I am trekking out now on my own as a solo artist full time. And I'm so proud of this album, proud of these lyrics and the songs and the arrangements. And this is where you find me at this moment in time, man. February 2019. That's where I'm at and what's happening.
When you were a little kid growing up, what would you listen to on the radio? And besides Thin Lizzy, what were some of the other bands that really inspired you?
Well, you know, the obvious bands that all of us were listening to in the 70s and 80s, you know, everyone from, you know, Neil Young to Leonard Skinner to Led Zeppelin, Aerosmith. I was a big Aerosmith fan. And then later in the 80s, man, you know, I wasn't really into some of the mainstream, you know, rock stuff that was happening then. But, man, when Guns N' Roses dropped Appetite for Destruction, that was a seismic event for me. And odd that it would affect me like that, because I'm just a kind of a redneck from Alabama, man. I grew up on a farm, you know, out in the middle of nowhere. So, you know, for that album to have the impact on me that it did, that really was the kerosene on the fire of me starting to write my own songs. And then the Black Crowes came out shortly after that.
Yeah.
Major impact on me, those two bands. So, but, you know, I listen to a ton of radio as well, man. I'm a fan of great songs. I'm a great fan of great pop songs. And, you know, I used to live for that Casey Kasem radio show, man, every Sunday. And I would listen from beginning to end. And so I knew about Leo Sayer and the Pointer Sisters and Neil Sedaka and, you know, Robert Palmer and on and on and on. So all of that stuff, man, was seeping in one way or another.
That's really cool to hear that. When you listen, I'm just going to talk about Guns N' Roses, but we'll get to that after this. I want to talk about Led Zeppelin for a second. I'd like your take on this. When you listen to Led Zeppelin records, and as you grew up in the industry and as you learned more about what you were doing and you created your art, when did you realize that Led Zeppelin is pretty much a cover band?
Well, you know what? I never did realize it. It took me until I was way down the path of my own songwriting and attempts at creativity that I went, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
You know, they were just listing from the records that were right in front of them and, you know, molding it into something new. And that's why they're such an amazing band. Same with the Beatles. You know, it's like you get these 4 incredible individual talents bringing ideas to the table, It's like Jimmy Page would bring some Muddy Waters riff, and then Robert Plant would bring some Lead Belly lyric, and then John Paul Jones would come in with this Wurlitzer keyboard part that might have been inspired by a Rachmaninoff piece. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well,
and then Bonham would start laying down the 2 and 4, and they'd go, "Yeah, this sounds pretty kick-ass. I think we should finish this idea. This is great."
Yeah,
that's what it is, man.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
It blows my mind that they were able to get away with it, and I can only imagine the initial meeting with the record company, where you got a guy who's around my age, but back in 1968, and they're looking for the next big thing because there's the Beatles are breaking up, and Jimi Hendrix, they might have missed him on their label, so they're like, "Oh man, we need a real act right now. What you got?" And then these kids come in, "Here's what we got for you, whole lot of love." And the guy doesn't check. Next thing you know, you find out many years after a lawsuit, it's a Willie Dixon song. Or as a kid, you're listening to When the Levee Breaks, and then you're amazed to find out it's a Memphis Mini song from 1929 based on the Mississippi flood. So that kind of stuff has always blown my mind. And then you have to look at other bands. And I like talking about other bands with other rockers because this is where we have fun. And this is where other listeners will go, "Wow, man, they're just like me." And I can't help but think of a group like Vanilla Fudge, who was doing all of those cover songs before Led Zeppelin hits the scene. And it's because of Vanilla Fudge that Led Zeppelin ends up playing in that Denver show. And look what happens to Led Zeppelin. They're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And Vanilla Fudge, they belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but not in there yet. And then you think of some of their members, like Carmine Appice on the drums, and then he's later with Blue Murder. And I'm sure as a kid, when you were just old enough to afford your own concert tickets, you must have been on that Bon Jovi Blue Murder tour that came through town to see him in concert, right?
I did take my first wife to see Bon Jovi.
There you go.
I cannot tell a lie. She was having it. There was no way she was going to miss it, and I was not going to let her go be in the same room with Richie Sambora without me there to keep an eye on her.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? So, but back to your other point, yes, Vanilla Fudge should be in the Hall of Fame. You cannot undervalue the other accoutrements that Led Zeppelin had that was beyond anything Vanilla Fudge had. They had a different sound, the image of that band. I mean, when you saw a photo of Led Zeppelin, they look different. And, and then when you get the female component in there and the girls are fired up about it, I'm sorry. I didn't go out with any girls that had Vanilla Fudge pictures on the wall, but they had tons of photos of Jimmy Page and Robert Plant.
Yeah. And before there was Maroon 5 and what's his face, there was Robert Plant without his shirt up on stage.
Right.
Adam Lambert,
That's
right?
The
original Adam
Robert
Lambert with no
Plant.
tattoos.
Robert Plant was a good-looking man back then, and so all of that works together, man, to just make this fireball of a moment. And that's all in your head when you're listening to those records, even as a kid.
Yeah.
And, musically, Zeppelin just felt like it was so complex. I wouldn't even begin to, get my head around the idea that I could do what they were doing. It sounded like a magic trick. It sounded like voodoo or something. It was just beyond my comprehension, so I would just listen to it and enjoy it, but I didn't think I could pull that off. It's like the first time I heard Eddie Van Halen play guitar.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It's like, what is that? I can't do that. But I can love it, and I can get inspired to love rock and roll and love going to concerts and put a Van Halen sticker on the back of my crappy car that I'm driving around here in high school. You know what I mean? So it was just what we lived for. And so my only goal, really and truly, Zach, was that I just wanted to be able to maybe make music for a living. And I've achieved that goal. And it's because of those guys and those inspirations and those just incredible moments, man. And look, if you talk to Robert Plant right now, he'd say, "Hey, mate, a lot of our stuff was just pure luck. Right place, right time. A lot of things kind of came together. Well, there's that. Well, thank goodness that happened.
Well,
thank goodness they were lucky.
I could tell you in interviewing Robert Plant, it depends on what day you get him, because one time he was releasing this solo album. I don't know, Darkness, whatever the damn thing was called. I got one of those advances, so it was not even titled yet, but I picked up that he was covering some songs. So I made the mistake of saying, I like some of the covers that you've done on this album of yours. He goes, they're not covers, they're interpretations. And after that, it kind of went downhill. So as I left, I didn't know what else to do, because here is an interview that I've always wanted to do. Robert Plant, I mean, I had all of their albums. I knew everything about Led Zeppelin, and he kind of ruined it for me. So I said, hey, Robert, before I leave, I did this research. I found out that you get in touch with your feminine side by having a daily cry. Good for you. Have a great day. And I walk out. And he went through the remainder of the day denying that he got in touch with his feminine side by having a daily cry. That's not true. I don't cry. I don't have a daily cry. So, you know, I mean, hey, man, if you're going to dish it out, I'm going to give it to you, too.
You know, man, listen, that's the beautiful thing about just the press in general. And now more than ever, man, with social media, it's like nothing is safe. Everything is open game. And, you know, look, man, if you're going to step up to the plate and go, I'm going to be an artist in the entertainment industry in 2019, you better have your wits about you. You better be light on your feet. You better be able to stick and move like a boxer. And sometimes you got to take one on the chin and roll with it.
Wow. So, do you have any kids? Do you have any children?
I have 5 kids.
Okay. So you know as well as I do, being the father of 5 children, that they're paying attention to everything that you do, even when you think they're not paying attention. So how you approach your work, your art form, is very important, and it brings this whole thing that we're talking about to a much higher level than you can even imagine. It's kind of mind-blowing. You have this new album. It's called Memoirs of an Uprising. Why don't you tell me what inspired the title of that, and then we'll talk about some of the tracks that are on the album.
Thank you, Zach. The title came after I had finished mixing the whole album. I had proceeded under the thought that I would name the album one of the cool titles of one of the songs on the album. There's some great titles. Dallas could have been a beatdown. Making Peace with This Wicked Beast.
Down on Me would never make it on the shelf.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was not in the running for album title. Let's just get that established right now. But what I felt in that moment of listening to all the songs was that there was kind of this theme running through a lot of it, and the way I had sequenced everything, it did have kind of a story quality to it. And I wish I had a sexier story other than to tell you that title popped in my head one day. My wife had said Uprising, and I said, well, I can't call it Uprising because that's that famous Bob Marley record that, that we've loved and listened to for forever. So, but I don't know, that word memoirs popped in one day, and I was like, Memoirs of an Uprising. That sounds like the name of a book. That sounds like the name of a series of books, and it just felt big, man. It felt grand and it felt bold, and proud of that title, even for just this, these 10 songs, man, 38 minutes top to bottom. It's not a long album, but lyrically, man, it covers a lot.
Yeah,
so,
I kind of like the fact that it's shorter. These long albums like Use Your Illusion 1 or 2, Guns N' Roses you mentioned before, it was a little too much for me. I kind of like it short, sweet, and to the point. And by the way, you know as well as I do, let me ask you this, just out of thin air, I got this question that popped in my head. Blame it on the CBD oil. What is the average length of each track?
Man, most of these tracks are under 4 minutes.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
No behemoth, epic. I've had some of those in my past on other releases, but yeah, for the most part, man, the average length of all 10 songs is about 3:45, 3:50.
I think that's smart, and it basically goes back to the old days. 3 minutes, 8-second intro, boom, you get to the meat of the matter, chorus right away, refrain, whatever it might be, because I've noticed that, and you probably noticed with the kids, there's something that they're doing completely different. They never listen to the whole song anymore. So you got to, get as much as you can in a little bit of time. And here's the other thing. More often than not, I watch my kid. She's finding stuff on YouTube and social media and not the traditional way that you and I grew up with. I just find that fascinating.
Yeah, it's great that you bring that up because I remember being in the car with my middle child, my daughter Sarah, and she's like, "Oh, Dad, I want to play something for you. I want you to hear a couple things." And I'm settling in, getting ready to listen to some new music, and I mean, it gets to the first chorus, and then she just changes to the other song, and I'm like, "Hang on, wait, I really like that." All I heard was one verse and one chorus. She goes, "Oh, but I want you to hear this other song too," and the light went off in my head. It's like, this is how it's done now. This is how kids are. This is how they process this. It's really a shame. And, now I sound like an old man, but back when I was a kid, vinyl records and reading the credits and full albums, and those were the good old days. And I used to walk 5 miles in the snow.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing. Sounds like Sarah's going to get a job in radio promo.
Yeah, she'd be great at it, man.
Right?
She would be great at it.
And you should have all the kids handle your social media. You shouldn't even be involved with that. I let my daughter do it all. I'm like, I don't know. You go ahead and do it.
I definitely let my wife do it, Zach, because one, there's a little bit of an age difference there. We're 12 years apart. She's younger, so she's really on top of that stuff and does a great job. But yeah, man, like you said earlier, when you have kids, you learn quickly. You better get to the point. Their attention span is minute. And I think it's that way for most listeners. I'm not going to sit here and deny that when I hear some piece of music, even if I turn on the radio, it better get my attention or I'm going to change it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And by the way, it's also the fact that there's so much information coming in at the same time that you have to use multi-thread thinking, and therefore some things shut down while other things open up. Even with talk radio, these guys got to get to the point. When I listen to Coast AM and I hear this guy out of Canada telling me to hang my coat up on the peg and sit on the chair and get in my jammies, I tune out. I want to hear about people being abducted by UFOs right away. I don't want to wait for that. I don't need the setup. Just get right into it. Yeah, so
let's get right to it.
Yeah, so
and you know what, man, and that's what I felt like this record was for me, honestly. And there wasn't any manipulated. It's not like I said, okay, I'm going to write these songs, but they have to be under 4 minutes. That's just how they turned out. It wasn't until later in the process I went, okay, this is cool, man. These are short and sweet, and a couple of them are under 3 minutes. And all that mattered is that I felt like I completed the thought. I completed the idea of the story in this particular song. And this record this time, they were short and sweet, and they get right to it.
I kind of like that, Damon, and here's why. I find that short and sweet is always the way to go, and most of our favorite records that we grew up listening to, when you ask any of these artists, guess what the usual answer is about how long it took them to write the song? I did it in 5 minutes, man. I'm like, oh, come on, really 5 minutes? Are you kidding me? It's a number one hit. You did it in 5 minutes? It would take me 4 years. Yeah.
No, it can happen.
Yes, it does.
Happen.
Yeah, I mean,
it can happen really, really fast, but those moments of inspiration, and I think that's one of the things that keeps us all in this, man, is we know that those moments are out there. And if you don't, it's like my dad used to say, if you leave the field, you can't plant any crops. Mm-hmm. So it's like sometimes if you'll just keep planting, all of a sudden, man, you'll get a giant return, and it'll come fast, and it'll be technicolor and healthy and enormous and special. But you got to do the hard work in between as well.
I agree with
planting, you know what I mean? Some of the planting of song ideas, it's hard work, man. It's just work. You got to be disciplined. You can't. It's not easy.
Yep, and, you're right. It is about being disciplined. It's about showing up. Showing up is half the battle, right?
Yeah, man.
Yep. Out of all the tracks on this album, what would you say? I know Shivering, Shivering is the lead track. I got it. I really love it. And then you have the video. I think I seen it on. Here's what I did. I think I might have. I'm not sure. You're going to have to help me on this.
No, the video's coming. The video's coming literally this week.
Okay. So what was I listening to? I don't pay attention. That's my problem.
You may have been able to listen to. There is a YouTube link to
that's
the
it.
audio.
Yes, that's exactly what it was. Okay, thank you for helping me out on that.
No problem.
Because when you're on this, coffee with the CBD stuff in it. The memory is just not what it used to be.
Man, I gotta try that, bro. That sounds good.
Look,
I love coffee.
The next time that you're in New York City, you come over to my studios. We'll go get coffee and we'll just chat. I'll show you this place. This studio is phenomenal. We also work with. I'm not going to say any names, but we work with famous athletes over here in the same building. Football players, okay? Some baseball players too. So this would be a lot of fun for you. You would enjoy this, but I can't really get into it more than that. Off the air, I can.
You have to let me take you up on that gracious offer.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
I would love.
Even better.
We were just there.
Yes, I know. I just see I saw the list on the 29th and 30th here at the Iridium in New York City. And now,
we
now
had a great time, and we love New York, and let's call it a date, man. Next time
definitely.
I'm there,
and if the kids come with you, bring them over. I love kids. I am like just all about the family. I can't tell you how many times people bring their kids with them here, and we go out and we get cheap pizza, and then we start, doing what we do here in the studio. We just have a great time, and then I let the kid. I'll let the kids do what I do. I'll give them a quick training session about how to do multi-track digital recording and voiceovers and all of that stuff. So we have a lot of fun over here.
That's fantastic, man. Well, I'm coming.
Okay,
I'll be
good.
there.
And we'll do that. We don't even have to waste our money on the coffee because I bought a whole thing of hemp oil as soon as I had that first cup. I went right to the pharmacy. I go, give me that, and I'll take that, and give me the Twinkies, and give me the yo-yos and the ho-hos. Yeah, I went nuts.
Well, great, bro. Well, then we'll just brew up some Folgers coffee there in the office.
Oh, no. I got to try Senka. Nobody drinks that.
Yeah, Senka.
But
there we go.
back to some of the big songs in our lives, like Sweet Home Alabama, because you're from Alabama. I think it might have taken him 15 minutes to write that song. One of my favorite songs of all time, Turn It Up, and, that kind of things. What is your favorite song on Memoirs of an Uprising? And if you had to pick one, I know it's really hard to do.
It is hard. I think my favorite song on the record right now, and it really has been one of the two or three faves from the beginning, is track 2. It's called Dallas Could Have Been a Beat Down. And it's because of everything. It's because of the lyric. It's because of the tempo and the groove that the rhythm section plays. It's because of the guitar solo. Everything about it, man.
What happened in Dallas?
Yeah, how about that? Well, maybe we use the word Dallas because the city that the stuff actually happened in didn't sing very well, and it would have been too much of a giveaway to the other characters in the drama of the story.
The names are changed to protect the innocent.
How about that, brother?
Yeah.
How about we just went there?
I like that.
Maybe I'm admitting that lyric is kind of true, and my great friend Jim Troglin that I co-wrote these songs with, he's like, man, are you sure we can say this? I'm like, yes, we're going to say it, but we're going to change the name of the city. What's another city that would sing really well?
Yeah.
And he goes, Dallas Could Have Been a Beat Down. And as soon as he said it, I was like, that's it. That's the title. That's what we're going to say. And then it opens with this kind of affected voice, that opens the whole song with Dallas, Texas. I mean, Jody and everybody on my team, they feel like it should be the second single. So if I could be so fortunate as for that song to get a little traction in Dallas, just think of how killer that'll be, man, to play a show there.
That'd be totally awesome. And then you can lie to the audience like, Dallas, you're the greatest city on this entire tour. I don't know if you ever did this when you go to concerts as a kid. You swore that you yelled louder than any other city that these guys appeared from,
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be like, oh, no, we're the best crowd ever, hey! And they would get you to go like that on the stage. I'll tell you who did that was Black Sabbath and Blue Oyster Cult. That was my first concert in 1979. I'll never forget that, at Madison Square Garden. I convinced my parents that it was okay for me to go with my friend Chris Friel on the train into New York City, right? My parents would pick me up over by the post office on 8th Avenue and 34th Street. And the whole place smelled like a gigantic bong. I kid ye not. And there you had Blue Oyster Cult opening up. And all of a sudden, the drummer at the time, his head turned into Godzilla during that song. And then Black Sabbath gets up on there. And you got Ronnie James Dio, who replaced Ozzy Osbourne, lead vocals, at Heaven and Hell and all of that stuff. I come out and I smelled like a big, gigantic bong. I got in the car. My dad goes, "What went on in there? The fire trucks are going into the venue. What kind of crazy stuff?" I was grounded for 4 months after that. Couldn't go to another concert.
Brilliant. What a brilliant story.
Oh, man. And then
amazing.
I got to
I love it.
And I finally got to tell it to two. I told it to Eric Bloom and Ronnie James Dio when he was still alive. And you know what blew me away about Ronnie James Dio? First off, he's a tiny guy. I did not know that. But secondly, he had a New York accent because he was from Syracuse, and the whole time I thought he was from England. I never paid attention. I figured, Black Sabbath. Why wouldn't the guy who replaces Ozzy Osbourne be from England, right? So
right?
Yeah, when I heard his accent, I'm like, whoa, man, you're just screwing with me, right? You're not really from New York, are you? And he goes, yeah, I'm from Syracuse. Wow. How about that? So what was the...
Isn't it one?
Before we go, what was your first concert or a great concert experience that you can share with the rest of us besides the Bon Jovi and your wife? Nobody wants to hear that.
Yes, tip of the hat to Bon Jovi. 2 shows. I got to mention them both. My very first show was Boston. Came to Mobile, Alabama. And we were like so many other kids, man, consumed with that first record. Nothing else sounded like that. And just, so we go to the Mobile Auditorium to see Boston. And the opening act was some guy named Sammy Hagar.
Oh, wow.
And much like your story, Zach, I'll never forget walking into the arena and being pummeled with this smell that I'd never been exposed to in my life, And I just, the way it struck me, man, I thought, okay, everybody in this room is doing drugs right now, and this is what drugs smell like, and this is what it makes the air look like. And Sammy was already on stage, and he was standing on top of one of the big speaker cabinets, and he was playing a lap steel, playing some song called Bad Motor Scooter from some band he had been in previously called Montrose. And every other word was an expletive. And I thought it was awesome. I thought it was so awesome. Like, man, this guy with his big mane of blonde hair is calling everybody in the room an MF right now, and he is totally authentic. And a few months later, I went to see Ted Nugent, and unbeknownst to me and my friends, the last-minute added opening act was a band called Thin Lizzy.
Wow.
And the only song I was familiar with was The Boys Are Back in Town. So I told my friends, I bet this is going to be good. Let's make sure we get there early. And Thin Lizzy came on stage and changed my life forever. It was like when our older, relatives saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, or before that they saw Elvis, and just changed my life, man.
Well,
so there's no way I could not mention both of those shows.
The Boys Are Back in Town ended up one of those. I went to a boarding school for the first 2 years of high school, and that ended up our theme song whenever we'd get back to campus. The Boys Are Back in Town. And, there were Irish guys that are amongst us, so it was a big deal for the Irish, especially when they would cover Whiskey in a Jar, whatever the name of that song is. Now, quick questions for you, right? You ready for this one? Van Halen or Van Hagar? Take your pick.
I love them both. I'm not going to pick. It's my interview. You're not going to make me pick.
Okay. I'm going to say that I edge out on Sammy Hagar.
Okay. Well, Sammy I know, and Sammy I love, and Sammy I've spent a lot of time with. But you know what? I spent some time with Eddie and Alex and Michael, and, but those Roth records, man, they just hold no peer. There's nothing like it. Those, especially the first 4, man, just seismic.
You're right.
You're right in their impact.
I probably shouldn't have done that one. So I got an easier one for you. You've seen the meme: Bill Clinton or Sammy Hagar?
Sammy Hagar today, Sammy Hagar tomorrow, Sammy Hagar forever.
I mean, you see that picture? Bill Clinton looks horrible. Sammy Hagar's the same age. It looks like, wow, I got to go down there to Cabo Wabo and get some of that tequila, man.
That's a great meme, man.
Yeah, that's funny.
A great meme.
All right, and this is just because you're from Alabama. You know what I'm going to ask you? Bama or Auburn?
Auburn Tigers, War Eagle. I was born Auburn. I bleed orange and blue, Zach. I will die an Auburn man.
I like that. What was that guy that used to play for Auburn? The guy who played baseball and football. Bo
Jackson.
Bo Jackson. Check this out. He confused me. He came over to my studio one day, and we were recording. I had to do some work with Bo Jackson. And he's got this black Alabama shirt on. Like, I'm looking at him like, and you know, I can't remember everything. I go, did you go to, and I'm afraid, did you go to Bama? He goes, did you go to Bama? Like, just like that. He goes, no, I didn't go to Bama. I went to Auburn. You know, I'm like, whoa, sorry. You know, because I thought I was going to die at that moment, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah. War Eagles. Okay, I like that.
Yeah, War Eagle, brother. I love it. Brother Kane actually signed its record deal at the War Eagle Supper Club in Auburn, Alabama. How about that?
I think that's awesome. Why not?
That's awesome, man. Yeah, our A&R man from Virgin Records came to see us play there and loved it and said, we're going to do this.
Did you see the movie Bohemian Rhapsody?
I have not seen it, brother, and I have been telling my whole family, like, we got to go see this film, and I guess now it's maybe out of the theaters. I'll just have to watch it on, pay-per-view or something on TV, but I have to watch it, man. I love Queen, and the reviews are great. I
got the copy from SAG-AFTRA because I get to vote on the SAG Awards, so let me see if I can find that. Who has it, and I'll send it to you. Then, besides that, I think we got everything. I can't think of anything else to ask you. I asked you if you saw Bohemian Rhapsody. We asked you between Van Halen and Van Hagar. You said absolutely Van Hagar. You said Bill Clinton. You said go Bama. Oh, yes, the final, before we leave, your favorite NASCAR driver of all time, because once again, you got Dega in your neighborhood, and I do believe that is where the Allison brothers are from. Am I right about that? I'm pretty sure.
Man, you're on top of your stuff, Zach. You are correct. The Allison family is from Birmingham, actually from Bessemer, and Hueytown, Alabama. But my favorite NASCAR driver of all time was Dale Earnhardt.
He was the greatest.
I went to several races when I was younger, and I went to Talladega one year. And I actually had a pit pass, so I got to watch the race from, inside the pit.
Yeah.
And Earnhardt crashed. They bring his car in on a tow truck. He comes in the medic's truck. He was totally fine. And he goes in for a minute and, changes his shirt and comes out. Man, I got to stand next to Dale Earnhardt and watch the rest of the race. And he was so awesome. He was super cool and, answered all my stupid questions and, it was the same feeling had I met Jimmy Page, when I was in the 7th grade. It was just like, wow, this is awesome.
That is a pretty awesome experience. Now, I've been at Talladega, too, on that infield. I'm from the New York area, and I would show up, and I remember I'm, asking for directions right behind where the Hall of Fame is for Talladega, and the sheriff goes, boy, you lost. I go, what do you mean I'm lost? I'm here to see the red. No, you don't understand. Y'all lost. I go, oh, it's because I'm from New York. I get you. So I turn into a total guy, and with my wife, and there are these two girls on top of a camper, all right? And they're oiled down for some reason in their little bikinis. And my wife starts to hit me because she thinks I'm staring at those two girls on top of the RV, right? I go, what are you doing? She goes, quit looking at those girls. I go, what girls? I'm looking at this guy's barbecue over here. See? That's when you've made it to manhood, when you're like, the hell with that. I want the barbecue over there. So there's my funny Talladega. It was great talking.
That's all. No, listen, man, there's so many great girls at Talladega. There's so much great barbecue. So that was a great way to get out of that little moment of possible trouble.
I guess
with the missus.
Well, yeah. The lesson is for all the guys watching, or I should say listening, is that even if you look, you pretend like you weren't looking. That's the moral of the story, right? It's not like I didn't notice them, but I was like, I gave up on those two because I knew that getting that free barbecue was more plausible for me at that time. So I was like, I could get that barbecue. Well, thank you very much. We're looking forward to the release of the album, which is going to be coming out on March 8th, I do believe.
Correct.
And I did see it was available on vinyl, right?
It is. It is, Zach. I'm so proud, man. It's on colored vinyl, and it's the first time I've ever put out anything solo related on vinyl. So it was an exciting day at our house when those boxes showed up and we pulled that first one out. Yeah, man, this is just I feel like it's an inspired moment for myself and for my family with everything that's happening. And, looking forward to working hard, man, playing a lot.
Hey,
and,
listen, this is what I like to hear. This is what I like to hear. When you took that 180-gram vinyl out of the box, which is not flimsy, which means it's going to last. You get all that album packaging, the old album artwork, the inserts, all the information. I just love that stuff. And you put it on your turntable. I'm assuming it was a Technics. Has to be, right?
I think it is a Technics,
right.
Yes.
What was the track that just popped off the record for everybody in the family? They're all looking at them like, I can't believe my dad just did this. This is incredible. I never expected this out of Dad.
Yeah, well, see, I talk so spiritually about the experience of listening to vinyl as a kid to my own kids. I tell them about that. So, they don't listen to vinyl ever. So when the record came, I brought them into the reading room where we have the turntable. I'm like, okay, guys, sit down. This is a big moment for me. I want to share it with you. So, take the vinyl out, put it on the turntable, drop the needle, track one, side one, which is the single, Shivering, Shivering. And just to hear that pop, when the needle catches with that groove. And the song started up, man, it sounded like glory. It sounded like heaven. It was so exciting, Zach. And I don't think I'll ever forget that. That was a great moment for us.
Now, you know what? I have to get a vinyl copy of that album. I'm going to get it. I don't want you to send it to me. I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to buy it. See, I'm not one of those. I'm not a cheap radio personality. I'm like, you know what? If I want something bad enough, I'll go buy it. I don't look for the freebies.
Brother, I love you for that. And I appreciate that, because when you're an independent artist and you're putting things out on your own label imprint, brother, the merchandise stand and the store on your website is everything. So, man, thank you. Send all your listeners to just DamonJohnson.com, and they can have a vinyl copy of that record sitting in their house within 72 hours.
Bam! You did the perfect out. I didn't even have to do anything after that.